الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. One of the very clear concepts in the deen of Islam from the wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a principle. And the ulama, they call it al-jaza' min jins al-amal. The recompense is from the same sort of deed that a person do. Meaning, if someone forgives, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him. If someone has mercy towards others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him. If someone do evil, whatever the sort of evil that he do, he will be treated in the same way, whether in this life or in the hereafter. There's so many examples in this. Man la yarham la yurham, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says. The one that has no mercy to others, he's not going to receive mercy. And just the mercy, every single human being, he is in need of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than anything else. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treats people with everything but not the mercy, they're all going to be punished in the hellfire forever. The thing that makes the believers enter the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the mercy of Allah, not because they're that great or anything like that. It's the mercy of Allah. And therefore, those who want to receive the mercy of Allah, of course, they have to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and to be upon the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inna rahmatallahi qareebun min al-muhsinin. The mercy of Allah is near those who are muhsinin, those who are good doers. And al-ihsan is always mentioned as two types. Al-ihsan fi ibadat al-khaliq, the ihsan in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship Allah as if you see Allah, and if you don't see Allah, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing you. Wal-ihsan fi mu'amalat al-makhluq, and the goodness in dealing with the makhluk, the creation of Allah, according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And that's why the entire world are in loss when the Muslimin are not applying the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way it ought to be. There's no mercy on this in the life of the human beings except, the mercy that is given in the hearts of every single human being towards their own children, their own people, things of that nature. But the real mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with, when a person do it as a religious matter, as a choice, that a person would have mercy towards others with all what that means. The same thing with forgiveness, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and the like of him in the hadithat al-ifk at the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And then the verses came, أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Don't you love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive you? So he said, I forgive. And he had the right not to forgive because he was treated with so much injustice from some of the people. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called them to forgive, called them to pardon. Why? أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Don't you love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive you? We have all kinds of sins. So if you always want people to be treated with justice, if someone says something bad to us, we want our right. If someone does things, especially with those who pray together, do things together, we always want to be treated with justice. Well, if that's what you want, to be always treated with justice, nobody would enter Jannah that way. We need the mercy of Allah. We need the forgiveness from Allah. So therefore, we have to forgive those, of course, who deserve to be forgiven, especially when someone does wrong and they apologize, or they don't even apologize, especially for those who, if we start with the close ones to us, our family members, people pardoning one another, husband and wife and husband, brothers and sisters, people in the same community, they pray together. Let the larger scale of things, if we put it aside for now, at least to deal with the ones that we see all the time. If we don't have this in ourselves, what goodness can we expect? So, and this is part of the deen. It's not because it makes sense or it's reason, things of that nature. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. In the same way you would find, and this is this concept, but because of the time we have a dars, for example, Inna Allah, hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Inna Allah yu'adhib man yu'adhibu an-nas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, yu'adhib is the punishment, is the torture. Those who torture people, those who punish people without the right to do that, they will be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So al-jaza' min jins al-amal. The recompense is from the same sort of deed that a person would have, and that's why when the hearts are full of concern and nasiha and mercy towards others and forgiving and so on, the person will be treated accordingly. The man that used to give loans to people, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and then when someone comes and it's time for him to pay the loan and he has difficulty, he would pardon him. And he died. The hadith says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave him because he used to forgive the people, because he used to pardon the people. So the reward is from the same sort of deed that he used to do. So for each one to have something like a trade with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he wants to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that thing. He used to pardon people, he used to forgive people, he used to be kind to others, he used to something that has to do with being against one's desire, to step on our own egos and desires and things like this, whether it's a ibadah between the person and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or dealing with one another to purify our hearts and seeking only the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Sallallahu sallam baraka Muhammad sallallahu sallam. Inshallah, we'll continue with Ahkam al-Hajj after a few minutes, inshallah.